Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. Chapter 11. The Captain Knuckles Under. Alan and I sat down to breakfast about 6 of the clock. The floor was covered with broken glass and in a horrid mess of blood, which took away my hunger. In all other ways we were in a situation not only agreeable, but merry, having ousted the officers from their own cabin, and having at command all the drink in the ship, both wine and spirits, and all the dainty part of what was edible, such as the pickles and the fine sort of bread. This of itself was enough to set us in good humor. But the richest part of it was this, that the 2 thirstiest men that ever came out of Scotland, Mr. Shaw being dead, were now shut in the forepart of the ship, and condemned to what they hated most, cold water. "And depend upon it," Alan said, "you shall hear more of them ere long. You may keep a man from the fighting, but never from his bottle." We made good company of each other. Alan indeed expressed himself most lovingly, and taking a knife from the table, cut me off one of the silver buttons from his coat. "I had them," says he, "from my father Duncan Stewart, and now give you one of them to be a keepsake for last night's work. And whenever you go and show that button, the friends of Alan Breck will come round you." He said this as if he'd been Charlemagne and commanded armies. And indeed, much as I had admired his courage, I was always in danger of smiling at his vanity. In danger, I say, for I had not kept my countenance, and I'd be afraid to think of what a quarrel might have followed. As soon as we were through with our meal, he rummaged in the captain's locker till he found a clothes brush, and then taking off his coat, began to visit his suit and brush away the stains with such care and labor as I supposed to have been only usual with women. To be sure, he had no other, and besides, as he said, it belonged to a king, and so behooved to be royally looked after. For all that, when I saw what care he took to pluck out the threads where the button had been cut away, I put a higher value on his gift. He was still so engaged when we were hailed by Mr. Riach from the deck, asking for a parley, and I, climbing through the skylight and sitting on the edge of it, pistol in hand and with a bold front, though inwardly in fear of broken glass, hailed him back again and bade him speak out. He came to the edge of the roundhouse, and stood on a coil of rope, so that his chin was on level with the roof, and we looked at each other a while in silence. Mr. Riach, as I do not think he'd been very forward in the battle, so he'd got off with nothing worse than a blow upon the cheek. But he looked out of heart and very weary, having been all night afoot, either standing watch or doctoring the wounded. "This is a bad job," said he at last, shaking his head. "It was none of our choosing," said I. "The captain," says he, "would like to speak with your friend. They might speak at the window." "And how do we know what treachery he means?" cried I. "He means none, David," returned Mr. Riach. "And if he did, I'll tell you the honest truth, we could not get the men to follow." "Is that so?" said I. "Well, I'll tell you more than that," said he. "It's not only the men, it's me. I'm frightened, Davy." And he smiled across at me. "No," he continued, "what we want is to be shut of him." Thereupon I consulted with Alan, and the parley was agreed to, and parole given upon either side. But this was not the whole of Mr. Riach's business, and he now begged me for a dram with such instancy and such reminders of his former kindness, that at last I handed him a pannikin with about a gill of brandy. He drank a part, and then carried the rest down upon the deck, to share it, I suppose, with his superior. A little after, the captain came, as was agreed, to one of the windows, and stood there in the rain, with his arm in a sling, and looking stern and pale, and so old that my heart smote me for having fired upon him. Alan at once held a pistol in his face. "Put that thing up," said the captain. "Have I not passed my words, sir, or do you seek to affront me?" "Captain," says Alan, "I doubt your word is a breakable. Last night you haggled and argle-bargled like an apple-wife, then passed me your word and gave me your hand to back it. And you can very well what the upshot. Be damned to your word," says he. "Well, well, sir," said the captain, "you'll get little good by swearing." And truly that was a fault of which the captain was quite free. "But we have other things to speak," he continued bitterly. "You've made a sore hash of my brig. I haven't hands enough left to work her. My first officer, whom I could ill spare, has got your sword throughout his vitals, and passed without speech. There's nothing left me, sir, but to put back into the port of Glasgow after hands, and there by your leave you'll find them that they're better able to talk to you." "Aye," said Alan, In faith, I'll have a talk with them myself, unless there's nobody speaks English in that town. I have a bonny tale for them. 15 tarry sailors upon the one side, and a man and a halfling boy on the other. Oh, man, it's pitiful. Hoseason flushed red. No, continued Alan, that'll no do. We'll just have to set me ashore as we agreed. Aye, said Hoseason, but my first officer's dead, you can best how. There's none of the rest of us acquaint with this coast, sir, and it's one very dangerous to ships. I'll give ye your choice, said Alan. Set me on dry ground in Appin, or Ardgur, or in Morven, or Arsig or Morar, or in brief where ye please within 30 miles of my own country, except in the country of the Campbells. That's a broad target. If you miss that, you must be as feckless as the sailor as I found ye at the fighting. Why, my poor country people in their bit cobbles pass from island to island in all weathers, aye, and by night too, for the matter of that. A cobble's not a ship, sir, said the captain. It is nigh draught of water. Well then, to Glasgow if ye list, says Alan. We'll have the laugh of ye at the least. My mind runs little upon laughing, said the captain. But all this will cost money, sir. Well, sir, said Alan, I'm nigh weathercock. 30 guineas if you land me on the seaside, and 60 if you put me in the Linloch. But see, sir, where we lie. We are but a few hours' sail from Admerkin, said Hoseason. Give me 60 and I'll set you there. And I'm to wear my brogues and run jeopardy of the redcoats to please you, cries Alan. No, sir. If you want 60 guineas, earn them and set me in my own country. It's to risk the brig, sir, said the captain, and your own lives along with her. I'll take it or want it, said Alan. Could you pilot us at all? Asked the captain, who was frowning to himself. Well, it's doubtful, said Alan. I'm more of a fighting man, as you've seen for yourself, than a sailor man. But I've been oft enough picked up and set down upon this coast, and you should ken something of the lie of it. The captain shook his head, still frowning. If I'd lost less money on this unchancy cruise, said he, I would see you in a rope's end before I risked my brig, sir. But be it as you will. As soon as I get slant of wind, and there's some coming or I'm more mistaken, I'll put it in hand. But there's one thing more. We may meet with a king's ship, and she may lay us aboard, sir, with no blame of mine. They keep the cruisers thick upon this coast. You ken who for. Now, sir, if that was to befall, you might leave the money. Captain, says Alan, if you see a pennant, it shall be your part to run away. And now as I hear you're a little short of brandy in the fore part, I'll offer you a change. A bottle of brandy against 2 buckets of water. That was the last clause of the treaty, and was duly executed on both sides, so that Alan and I could at least wash out the roundhouse and be quit of the memorials of those whom we'd slain, and the captain and Mr. Riot could be happy again in their own way, the name of which was drink.